live on YouTube as well. So once that gets started, then I will introduce everything. As that's loading up, my name is Shuri Network, and I am the founder of Coders of Color, which is a not-for-profit to get young underrepresented people into tech through a multitude of events, ones like this where you just hear from people that want to get into, that are already in the sector, that can be some role models, but also hands-on events. So we did some machine learning on Monday. We're doing some Twilio tomorrow. So it's just a huge wide range of events to get young people into tech. And today we're partnering up with the Shuri Network to run some amazing, this amazing panel with these wonderful women that work in tech in the public sector. Looks like we're live on YouTube now, so let's get started. I've already introduced myself and what we do. So I think since I've stopped sharing, and I think since we're in collaboration with the Shuri Network, Shira, I'll let you go first.
Thank you, Tolulope. Really looking forward to this session. My name's Shira. I'm a GP in East London, and I'm the co-founder of the Shuri Network, which is for BME women who are interested in technology and digital health, because we all use technology every day to look after our patients in the NHS and social care. But there are very few women of color at senior leadership levels. So through the network, I've met these wonderful women who have given up their time to share their career stories with you. Thank you.
Yay, thank you very much, Shira. Up next, I'm just going to go from what I can see on my screen, is Ayo. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, hi, my name is Ayo. I am Ayo Ogunkolade, actually. I've mentioned my last name. I work in the NHS, Central Northwest London Foundation Trust, which is a mental health trust. I am the head of information, my trust. So my trust is it's quite a large mental health trust, actually, covering most of Central London, a lot of Central London, core Central London boroughs. And do I have to talk my background at this point? I'm just sort of doing an introduction.
No, this is just an introduction. That's
okay.
Fine.
Okay, so that's who I am. I think I'll sort of, speak more about what I do later on.
Cool. Next person I can see is Jasmine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Latham. I am the lead data scientist in Office for National Statistics in ONS. I'm based in London. We have 3 different offices in Wales, and I travel to Wales quite a lot. In general, as a lead data scientist, I lead a field data science team that we deliver data for public good. And it's ranging from improving operational output for social healthcare, sustainable energy, all the way to dashboard for ministers to use. Probably you'll be familiar with those dashboard and card that recently seen on COVID that briefed by the Prime Minister. So yeah, the team is working very hard to deliver that. So that's my role.
Wonderful, that sounds very exciting. Next up, I can see Grace.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Grace Allen Colcott. I'm a communications officer for a program called Understanding Patient Data, which is based at the Wellcome Trust. So the Wellcome Trust is a foundation, which means it's independent from government, and it funds research to improve health for everybody. And the program I specifically work on focuses on research, policy and advocacy around health data to improve the way that health data is used and to make it easier for people to understand what happens to data collected about them when they interact with the NHS. And so although we're not, a part of government or part of the NHS, we work a lot with partners and colleagues in the NHS. And as communications officer, my role is really to lead all the communications activity for the programme.
Okay, cool. Oh, I'm so excited. Next up is Zainab.
Hi everyone, my name's Zainab and I work with NHS England and NHS Improvement, and they are basically the body that leads the NHS and our policy and our strategy within the NHS in England. Within that, I work in innovation, research and life sciences. So I work on a number of innovation programs and kind of help that innovation spread across the NHS. I also really enjoy coding as well, and I've done a couple of coding courses. So front end, back end, Python, data science. Yeah, I've kind of delved in all of it. So happy to be here today.
Wow, yeah, so am I. I'm happy you're here today. And last but obviously not least, we have Dr. Ruth.
Thank you, Tom. Hey, hi everyone.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Ruth, we can't hear you.
I can't hear you. No.
Ruth, we can't hear you at all.
Yeah. We can't hear you. No, we can't hear you now. Whilst Ruth is sorting out her sound, possibly. No, we can't hear you. I'll let you know when we can hear you. If you have any questions for anyone on the panel, there's a Slido for you to ask anything. We have a lot of people here, very insightful things. You may have questions for people in particular or about certain things in particular. Feel free to put your questions on the Slido. We're also live on YouTube, so feel free to share it as well. We've tweeted out, feel free to share. I'll tweet to have more people tuning in as well. Ruth, we can't hear you yet. No? No. Okay. So I think what I'll do. Oh, I think we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. So shall I start from the beginning?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm delighted to be a part of this phenomenal panel of women. So my name is Dr. Ruth Adbakova. I am an academic and also a digital health consultant. And I have a PhD in digital health innovation and sustainable transformation. And basically a lot of the work that I do looks at how we can use digital technologies to provide better patient care. And I'm delighted to be a part of this panel, so I'm looking forward to it.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And it's great that everyone sound is working and stuff now. So I'll go back round in the same order and start again with Shira. How did you get to where you are today? What's your journey from however far back you want to delve into?
Okay, so I'm a doctor, but my first job was not as a doctor. My first job was as a nurse, strangely, because when I was at medical school in Paddington at St. Mary's a long time ago, unfortunately, halfway through, my dad was made redundant. So that put a lot of financial pressure on our family. And I thought, well, what can I do to help? So I decided, first of all, to try and work as a sales assistant on Oxford Street, and I was a disaster. And I lasted about 2 weeks. And then I stumbled into nursing or being a nurse's assistant. So I used to spend my weekends in North London working with very elderly and frail patients, helping nurses to look after them. And I think I learned a lot from that experience. You know, I got an insight into what it was like for nurses, for patients who were very frail, many of whom had dementia, and the challenges for both families and patients and nurses. And I suppose I carried that experience and resilience with me when I became a doctor. So after doing medicine, I trained as a GP. It takes about 9 years to train as a GP. And then I became a partner. I realized I didn't know anything about running a practice or leading a team. So I did an MBA. And I suppose the point I'm trying to make is there are lots of opportunities within the NHS. Whether you're a therapist or a doctor or a nurse or an analyst, there are lots of opportunities for you to grow and develop. So I stumbled again into digital technology about 4 years ago. I never used to be interested in technology at all, but as I've realized, we all use it every day. And therefore we need to bring diverse voices, people from all backgrounds, whether it's race or gender or social class, into designing technology. So that's why I started the Shuri Network. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. From Oxford Street to MBA, like so many different career paths. We'll get into that later. But next person is Ayo.
Hi everybody. My name is Ayogun Kolade. Again, I don't know how far back I need to start, but I think I'm going to start with my journey. So, for me, what comes to mind is when I was about 13 or 14, so probably the age, or maybe younger, of the people who are dialing in. So I was my mom asked me to do summer course on computing. So I was back in Nigeria, I wasn't here in the UK. I was in Nigeria then. And frankly, it was just to keep myself busy. And I did some computer, I think it had to do with hardware. I can't recall, it had nothing to do with software. And I just sort of did that summer work placement. And fast forward a few years to going into university, I had no idea what I wanted to do, just so you know. So I loved maths. I really loved maths. I had like physics and chemistry. I hated biology, absolutely hated biology. My uncle wanted me to be a doctor, and I hated biology. I couldn't stand blood. And so my mom went, this is the university you're going to go, open the book and pick a degree. And that's literally how I got into computer science. And one of the reasons I picked computer science was because I had done that placement and I thought, okay, I'll try this. And I went into computing, and it's interesting because I didn't realize I needed to do all the coding and all that stuff. Just so you know, I don't code that much now. I manage a lot of people who do coding, but I don't do that much coding. But it was sort of an entry point for me, and it was quite interesting getting into not really knowing too much about the length and breadth of being in that industry, because there's so much you can do, from security to hardware to, I mean, the space is so broad now. There's so much, which is why this is really helpful. So not really knowing, having that degree and then going on to do an MBA, because I felt I didn't want to stick too much to the techie stuff. I loved doing, managing people and sort of doing a broader, having a broader understanding. And I found myself in the NHS many years later. And I currently work as head of information for Central Northwest London. I manage a team of analysts. We do a whole range of stuff. And in the department I work, there are coders and developers in my department. We work, I personally am involved in some elements of strategy. So I'm techie, I'm contractual, I'm doing strategy. There's a broad range of, of different things that I'm involved in. But I think for me, in terms of my thinking, I really want people to take away the fact that if you enjoy doing something, just follow the path, and find the path that if you never necessarily know where the end goal is, but just keep following the path and keep at it. Because I think Dr. Shira said the same thing. It's really about resilience, because I didn't grow up in the UK. But it doesn't matter with technology. Technology is the same everywhere, isn't it? It doesn't matter where you go. You sort of translate to any part of the world. And that's one of the things I really love about what I do, because it's translatable. And so sort of that's who I am, really. Yeah.
Wow, so we have 2 MBAs. I have a feeling there's going to be another one somewhere. I'm so excited to delve into everyone's roles. So next person is Jasmine.
Currently working as can you hear me?
Yeah,
Great.
no.
Okay. So I'm currently lead data scientist, and so how do I come to where I am today? In fact, when I was young, I was always a bit of a tomboy, really. I never really that in girl stuff, I suppose, and I was more interested in my dad's equipment. I go and and refix many of his hi-fi, and I took those apart and then try to improve it in my silly head, and then make them faster, better, and all. So it really is kind of started to, the curiosity started there. As always, I really enjoy maths and physics in general. I also quite like a bit of history, so I'm a bit of a mix of literature. Then at the time, that was, it was really 25 years ago, when I referred to what area I should go into, I immediately thought about build a brain. So so I got that. That's a bit of hardware, and that really, the next step was to maybe to Intel type of area. That's I changed as I went along, and I got an offer, or I then work on a corporate program as well. Look on to.
Jasmine, you're freezing, so we can't hear you.
You're freezing a bit. But I think you're back now. Not sure.
Oh.
We'll come back. We'll come back to you. So Grace, can you tell us your journey?
That's very strange. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can. So I sort of, I suppose there's some similarity with what Aya was saying in a different way, which is that when I was younger, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and because I was good at science, everyone was like, well, you should be a doctor. And so I initially actually did apply for medical school, and I guess that's like an advice I'd give to myself when I was younger, is like, you don't have to follow the like doctor, teacher, lawyer job path. Like there are many, many more jobs outside of that, but it just, that people didn't, it wasn't talked about really, and that it didn't have an idea that like actually like in a way most of the jobs that lots of people of our generation are doing like didn't exist like when we were at school, and like that's okay and you'll find that path, but I didn't know that because I was a kid. So I of course applied to med school, had the right grades, got zero interest in my application, like just got straight 5 rejections, was sad for like a day, and then I was like, I don't think I really want to be a doctor. And because the thing that I really loved was history, so then I went to study history for my undergrad in Newcastle, which I really enjoyed. It was really interesting, but it was very like European and British focused. So then I did a master's in African history and politics after that, which I loved. With hindsight, I wish at my undergrad that maybe I'd done something combined with something a bit more practical, like comms or PR, which is what I've ended up in. Again, that's, you know, the like looking back on the past, like hindsight is a beautiful thing, but I wish I'd gone for something that was also a little bit more practical rather than just like really purely like a old-fashioned kind of academic subject. But anyway, when I finished university, I really wanted to work for an organization that I felt was going to have a positive social impact. So I started off working for a charity. I worked for a big charity for called The Challenge for like 3.5 years, mostly in internal communications actually. So I built an intranet for them and did like lots of internal comms. But then I decided I wanted a new challenge, something maybe a bit quicker, a bit more exciting. I really didn't like internal communications. Like if it goes well, no one says anything. If it goes badly, everyone has something bad to say. So it's like you just like a lose-lose. I didn't find it like, it didn't really like inspire me. So anyway, I wanted to do something different. And then I moved into a small design agency called Projects by If. And that agency works on like responsible data and AI. And it was there that I developed an interest in technology and social impact. And I think I also learned something there that I think is really important, which is like, I had this model in my head that to do a job that has a positive social impact, you have to work for a charity. And that's not true. There are lots of private sector organisations that are also trying to have like a positive impact, or foundations like where I work now. So yeah, I think that was something like really important that I learned then. And then I joined Understanding Patient Data a year ago, kind of, which is weird because I've sort of done a loop back into healthcare, which I originally applied for ages ago. So it's sort of interesting that I'm on the periphery of that now. But yeah, I guess the main thing I would say to myself when I was younger is like, you don't have to follow a traditional career path, or yeah, you can find there'll be new things and different things that you can do and try if you're open to it.
Wow, wonderful, really comprehensive. Thanks for that. I feel like you already answered some future questions as well, which is good as well. No, it's fine. So next person is Zainab.
So I wish I had a panel like this when I was back at school, because actually there's so many words of wisdom that I completely agree with, and I just wish it would have saved me the trouble anyway of having to figure it out myself. But similar to Grace, I also thought about medicine, and that was what everyone was doing at school. If you had the grades, you did medicine. It was that simple. But I live with two doctors, and both my parents are doctors. I grew up with them, and if anything, I knew that I just didn't really want to do that. I found it really interesting, but I just didn't feel like I didn't get the same passion as they would for it. So I studied clinical sciences at university, and again, majority of people on my course wanted to do medicine, and I was the oddbod for not wanting to do it, and people thought I was crazy because I had the grades and I had academic record, but I just didn't want to. So again, wasn't too sure what the future held. And then I got into student representation. And then just about my final year, I ran to be one of the sabbatical officers at university. So I became academic affairs officer, and I got into the world of policy and strategy. Absolutely loved it. Thought like, oh wow, like this is amazing. I absolutely love this. I wished I could do this within the health sector, because I knew that I had a passion for health, and having the two together would be fantastic. So I applied for the NHS Graduate Management Training Scheme and did just that. So I did policy and strategy on that scheme. And there's a number of streams. So you could do finance, general management, health informatics, health analysis, all sorts of things. But I did policy and strategy. And then through that scheme, I kind of found my love for innovation. So I worked with the NHS Innovation Accelerator for a while, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Like, you've got the private sector and the public sector coming together to help people, and that social good and that change. And I just thought it was absolutely incredible. Every day I was speaking to inspiring people, and I said, I want more of this. And I guess that's where I kind of found out more about data and coding, and I was like, let me try and see if I could do some. So yeah, just kind of delved into it. And then once the graduate scheme finished, I got this job. So I'm now in innovation, and yeah, working with incredible people every day.
Wow, I think we'll get back to what exactly innovation is in a second, I think. But let's hear about Dr. Ruth's story.
Hi, can you all hear me okay? Oh, perfect. So yeah, I completely identify with many of the personal stories that a lot of the phenomenal women on this panel have already spoken about. Personally speaking, myself, I always loved science. I always loved IT, and so during my A-levels, I took A-levels in chemistry, biology, IT, and French. I always had a passion for languages as well. And in my IT class, thinking back, I was, I think, one of 3 girls in the class. So already at that time, I recognized that, okay, this is a field that I'm entering that it is quite underrepresented in terms of being a girl. And I didn't see other role models actually at that time. And that was probably over 15 years ago now. The other 2 girls, one of them was my twin sister. So I have a twin sister, and we always took the same courses and the same graduate study courses as well. And so we were among the first cohort in the United Kingdom to undertake a bachelor's in biomedical informatics. So it was the first degree in the country. At that time, it was being hosted at St. George's Medical School, University of London. And And at that time, I didn't really know what an informatician was. What are the career prospects? What can I do? And what is this field about? And I was exposed with the modules that I undertook to very many possibilities. And after my bachelor's, I undertook a master's degree in healthcare informatics at City University London. And that's one of the most established postgrad informatics courses in the country. It's also a centre for excellence. And there I found my love for research and innovation. And still at that time, there was no developed pipeline at all in terms of what the careers would be. After I completed my master's, I interned for an American company called Cerner. So they're an American health information technology company that do provide software to the NHS. And interning at that company gave me a global perspective. And I was able to find out what I really liked and what I disliked also. So that led me to also complete a PhD at the University of Glasgow in digital health, innovation and sustainable transformation. Studying and working at the University of Glasgow, I was able to see what careers I would go into, and that was mostly consultancy. So right now I am an independent consultant, and that gives me the flexibility to work on any project that I like to work on. And especially I have projects that I've worked on that I will go into later on that have usually been the first of its kind. And that's been really exciting to be at the forefront of innovation. And so, as many people on the panel have already spoken about, one of the advice, I think key advice that I would give myself, a younger self, would be just to believe in yourself, follow your path, follow your passions, and yeah, trust the process.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I really thought we were going to get another MBA, but it looks like we maxed out right at the beginning. Now we're going to go into, so we've kind of gone from however far back you chose to go, and now we're going to talk about the present. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions in one, which is, what's your job title and what do you do on a typical week? So what does a typical Monday to Friday look like? And we're going to go backwards this time. So we'll start with Ruth and then go back.
Perfect. So a day in my life, like I just mentioned, I have the flexibility to work on all the projects I love, and they combine research, healthcare innovation. So just to give you an example of some of the recent projects I've worked on. So at University College London Hospitals, I worked on the UK's first integrated EHR with a clinical trials discovery platform. So this platform is designed primarily for clinicians in the first instance, and is underpinned by AI, artificial intelligence, and natural language processing. And so the ambition for us was to be able to auto-match patients to clinical trials that they are eligible to take part in based on all of the information in their electronic health record. And another goal was also to ultimately to increase trial recruitment, and also to improve the visibility and availability of trials that are being carried out across the trust. Now, UCLH is quite a large trust. It includes 7 hospitals, and part of my role was also to lead all the stakeholder engagement efforts, which is great because I love to network, I love to build relationships, and I found that this role is well suited to me. Also, part of the previous 2 projects that I worked on as part of my doctorate degree was the UK's largest digital health innovation project to date in the UK, which was called Dallas. And that set out to improve the lives of 160,000 patients and people around the country. And I also led Scotland's first national digital health and wellbeing service at scale. And so my research looked at what could be the enabling factors, what would be the barriers when you want to upscale innovations, what are the critical success factors, and the lessons learned. So as I said, yeah, most of my interests really lie in stakeholder engagement and try to bring different perspectives to the table. So that's a day in my life. Yeah.
And just to clarify, what's your job title?
So I am an academic and digital health consultant.
Oh, thanks. Next up is Zainab.
Yeah, so I think that's a really difficult question because I don't really have a typical week. I don't have a typical day. But so my job title is Clinical Entrepreneurs Program Manager, a bit of a mouthful, but that actually doesn't explain what I do at all because I look after other programs as well. But essentially, I look after mainly two programs, the Clinical Entrepreneurs Program. So these are healthcare staff within the NHS or actually outside the NHS who so they see problems on the front line and then they see solutions, and then they might create a company or a social enterprise out of those solutions, and then we'll help and they'll scale that up. So you asked before about what's innovation, and innovation is anything from you might be able to create a new medical device, an AI tech, or it might be just a workforce development kind of model or new care models. It could be anything. It's anything done new, if that makes sense, or better. So if you could talk about innovation, about creative thinking as well, different people use different terms for innovation. But yeah, so I basically support those healthcare staff to innovate and then scale up their innovations. And typical week is a lot of talking. So I do a lot of Microsoft Teams or Zoom meetings at the moment, since we're in lockdown. But it is at the moment, for example, we are doing a recruitment for our new program. So I've got a lot of stuff around redesigning that and seeing how we can make it diverse and make sure that we have more people who reflect our diversity of our communities that we serve on the program, things like that. We're looking at like spinning out the program to another delivery partner, so commissioning. So very varied, but a lot of conversations with loads of different people just to kind of try and align things across the healthcare system. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting that I feel like you and Grace do similar things. So I'm excited to hear about Grace's typical week as well, because we're talking about social good and innovation and things like that. So Grace, what about you?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So I guess our sort of the program itself is really quite policy focused and about trying to like influence change. So to give you an example of something that we've done recently, we did a big public engagement exercise, which is basically where you get a load of people, members of the public, into a room to talk about an issue. And this one was about third parties, so private companies, or private companies or academics and researchers using NHS data for research. So we got a bunch of people in the room, they talked about it, and then we found out what they think about, what their views were, what their concerns were, and off the back of that wrote a report that we're now trying to use to influence NHS X, which is like the NHS's kind of like innovation lab. So we're now trying to use that to feed that through into the way that NHSX sets the direction around these sorts of partnerships, sets the rules around who can access data from the NHS and why, and what they need to be trying to aim for as a result of that access. So that's one example of the sorts of things that we tend to do, but my role is specifically in communications. So I lead all the communications for the program, and that can be quite varied, like across managing our social media, which is mostly Twitter actually for kind of health and policy stuff, writing blog posts or working with our partners to write guest blog posts, responding to press inquiries or liaising with the press when big stories kind of hit the media around patient data, writing newsletters as well. So that's like a sort of a summary of the kinds of activities I do. And I guess this is just to say that like you don't have to be a coder to work in this space. Like this sort of like working in tech, both in public sector or all different sectors. There are lots of other roles too, right? So there's like designers, there's people that do content, there's marketing, there's sales, there's program managers. Like I think sometimes, and I probably would have thought this, that you have to have a very specific skill set to work in tech and be like a really pro developer, but that's not necessarily the case. There's all kinds of different roles available. I didn't say my job title, did I? But my job title is communications officer.
Thanks. I think I was about to say that. First of all, there's innovation, there's entrepreneurship that does go on in the public sector. That's the first thing that I've taken away. And also, any job you can think of, you can probably do in the tech sector as well. So coding is great. And obviously, as coders of color, we advocate for learning those skills, but they're not a necessity to enter into tech. And there's everything in the public sector as well. So those are my thoughts and my kind of summary from what we've heard so far. Next up is Jasmine. So I think the question is, give us your job title and then a typical week.
Hi, I hope you can hear me better this time. Right, okay. So my job title is lead data scientist. My daily activities actually involve quite a lot of meetings because I do have to lead quite a few teams, and my role ranging from technical to organization, really management and strategy and policy decision making. So my typical day is that we have regular stand up, and we work something called an agile deliveries. And so what that means is that every day we have half an hour, the whole team will talk about our update, where we're up to, and the team range from all grades. So I go into a team where I have graduates or apprentices all the way to senior management, but we're working very similarly, just to give an update, what we're going to do for the day and what we're going to look forward to. So I had several of those to start my day. And then I go into a bit more detail to kind of troubleshoot onto some design issues with if it is more technical team. So our kind of work is related to one of the projects we work with the National Health Institute for Excellence, and they do recommendations for clinicians. So our way in helping them to build a tool to help them to do those publications faster and more accurate. So really, we really absolutely enjoy working with them. So we really go from getting the user stories, because we're building something that they haven't had before. And so when we talk about AI and others, we try not to use these terminology. We're really more trying to focus on what they need and how can we make their time more efficient and faster. So how can we help them looking at different databases, a huge amount of it, and spreadsheets? How do we do that? So the team really, after we got that, we go away and we really brainstorm and design the tool, in collaboration with them. So my work is very similar in all sorts of different projects like that across government and the public sector. All the way to more recently, we were also talking about homelessness and also working with people on adult social care, which is another top priority to help on. Also, another job I do is I lead a scale-up team. So one of the things that you guys may be interested is that when we talk about AI and machine learning, another thing is important to think about how we can actually scale it. Because what we want to do is to have some application that many can use. Say, for example, not just NICE can use, but many other similar applications can also use. So that really is my kind of day, and very busy, but we really enjoyed it, and everybody sort of muck in, so yeah, and really my data science is one of the team members that I work with, communication, stakeholder engagement, policy maker, also including project planning, business analysis, business architecture, platform, of course. So it's a very multidisciplinary team. And I really agree with other members on the panel, is there are lots of opportunity on the tech, and you really can find somewhere that you fit in very well, if you're interested.
Thank you so much for that, Jasmine. So comprehensive. Whilst you're still here, I think we missed your journey. So do you mind telling us how you...
Yeah. Did you miss it all completely, actually? I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
All right. Okay. So, all right, I'll start again. No worries. I'm a data scientist now, but actually when I first started, when I was young, I was very interested in looking at technical, as in equipment stuff. I open any hi-fi equipment, try to fix and unfix, cut the wires that my dad won't let me to do it, but I did it anyway, just to see, how it goes. And so when I was young, I already liked to do this sort of thing. And then as I get older, I also interested in maths and physics and others and languages as well. And so I decided that, well, I quite like to build a brain, a human, a sort of like a technical brain, which sort of led me to studying microelectronics. And microelectronics is very much about hardware and software to build chips, computer chips. So really from what we call a stick diagram, by building it by layers. Well, of course, now you probably see it in a tiny little square, but actually inside it's got lots of components in there. So I was very interested in that. So that's my first degree, really. And then after that, I decided to, there was a good opportunity to work in the defense corporate research program. So that was also part funded for a doctorate that I was as a research engineer. So that gave me quite a lot of research experience in tackling something that perhaps not ordinary civilian space would require. So that's satellite imagery, something more covert, others area as well. So lots of technology, and I love technologies. And part of it, AI is only as part of it as well. And then when I completed that, I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do now? Well, actually, I then started to continue to work in another defense organization. But the thing is that there are lots of security program that related to our way of life, lots of vulnerability as well. So I find that my degree and the background in hardware and software, particularly what you will find is that quite a lot of data scientists come from electronic and computer science mixed background. So I was actually quite surprised myself. I didn't know, but somehow we all sort of ended up to be similar doing that sort of thing at the end. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got to where I get to today. And then I just had to find a job, and they happened to be in tax in various sort of way. And actually, quite a few on the panel there, I did technical, but also I stumbled across doing management. So here's another one for you. I have done a bit of an MBA as well. As part of it, I was doing part-time. So really the range of it is I guess the message is I am very similar doing technical, but also doing management at the same time.
Wow, thanks for that. I knew there was another MBA somewhere. I knew it. So from those that we haven't heard from for a while, Ayo, what's your job title? What's your typical week?
Okay, sorry. I just realized I'm on mute. Hi everyone. I'll try and keep this as simple as possible because I know in NHS and in tech we use a lot of terminologies that sort of go over people's heads. So I'll try to keep it very simple. My job title is Head of Information. I manage a team of analysts, but my larger department consists of developers, analysts, business intelligence analysts as well. So we do a lot of coding in the team. We do a lot of reporting. What I would sort of try to bring this back to is also the fact that we take requirements. So we take people who don't understand technology, they want something, and we have a conversation with them and we turn it into technology that they can understand. And that's a really, really important skill to have. Another important skill to have is project management, because you're working to timeframes, to deadlines. So if you think about things like agile project management, there are courses out there that you can take, small courses, or Prince 2. Just so you know, after I did my MBA, I promised myself I will never pick up a degree in my life again. However, what I decided to do was take bite-sized courses, and I just want to encourage people. Learning never really stops. It's always good to, and that's one of the things IT affords you, to take bite-sized things here and there, pick up something here, pick up something there. Improve your learning. I would have liked to go into a typical day, but I think it's all encompassing in terms of my week, my month. I really would like to go into what we do in simple terms. And I think one of the things we do, because I work in a mental health trust. So before I started working in mental health trust, I'd worked in as a commissioner. So basically, so for those of you who don't know, in the NHS, there's sort of commissioners and providers. So people who commission services sort of manage and quality assure and oversee, so have oversight. And providers, which is the trust I'm working in, are the actual people that actually provide the services. So the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses. So I work in a provider trust where you have clinicians. And I didn't understand mental health at all. And so coming into data, mental health data, I think one of the things that's really important for me, and I think this is one of the things I pass on to my team, and this comes to what we do. So what we do is improving patient care. And I'll sort of give you a few examples, because I tell people data is data, work is work, but work is nothing unless you know why you're doing it. And that's the key thing. So a good example is, so for instance, we create reports around what we call waiting times, right? Because we're talking about children who have mental health needs, and potentially we're having children having to who have mental health needs waiting months, many months, to actually have their first appointment to see a clinician. And what we do is really support the services to track things like that, to ensure that child doesn't have to wait. So if you think about the impact of what we do, that's really key. And it's really the stories behind what we do that's important, because numbers are people. Another thing that we, so I'm sort of trying to throw, because I know the audience that we're working with here, I'm trying to throw out some of the things we do. So another thing we do, for instance, is we track patients who actually have to come into hospital, unfortunately, because they have a mental health need. But our hospitals are full and there's no capacity. So we're looking at the capacity from a technical perspective. We have reports, and unfortunately, these patients have to be sent many miles away. I'm talking, if you live in London, you're sent out of London. So it's called an out of area placement. And we support services to monitor them, because imagine if you live in London and you have to go to, I don't know, you have to go out to Essex, to actually be admitted because there's no capacity in London. And so we support services to help ensure that those patients are brought back through data, because that's really important. So one final example I probably give in terms of what we provide is something called risk assessments. So in mental health, risk assessment has to be completed, for instance, to ensure that they're risk assessing that patient. And it's also one for the patient's, safety, as well as for the clinician's safety. So someone else needs to see that patient. They want to make sure that they've looked at the risk assessment and everything about that patient is all documented. And we help track those as well. Again, if you think about another clinician coming to see the patient a few weeks later and there's no risk assessment, what if that patient is harmful to themselves or to clinicians? So that's what I do. I think that's the core of what I do. I help improve patient care. The data that we provide, myself and my team, really helps put things together, but also helps improve services. So for instance, we work, as we're in COVID now, we do reports every day for COVID data. So all the numbers that you see on the news, my team is actually working Monday to Sunday. Hopefully that's sort of eased off now. To provide COVID data, we're looking at making sure staff who have COVID, we're tracking those as well. It's really important to do that, because for the services to be able to open, we need to know how many staff are available. Again, going back to the impact of the stuff we do. And coming to the more the less simple stuff. So we do a lot of things around standardization. So one key thing that's really important, if you work in data, is everything has to be the same. So put it in simple terms, right? So if someone has something in a different format, if you can't talk to each other, so Samsung can't talk to Apple, that's the simple format. So we do a lot of standardization in that's one of the things my team does to ensure we have staff, 7,000 staff. So we have to ensure that they all understand how to record things on the system. So we come out with the same things. We're all speaking the same language. You know, we convert the data into simple English format to just say, this is how to record, this is how to report, just to make things quite clear. I personally do a lot of, you know, strategic stuff. So reporting to the board to ensure the board is cited on our performance. Is there any issues? You know, reporting around our quality. So we do like a lot of quality reporting as well to the board. So basically board assurance. And I think in terms of stakeholders, so stakeholders are just people I liaise with on a regular basis. Again, bringing it back to my my work. And because even though we work in tech, I think one key thing to understand is the people that we liaise with, and liaise with in terms of the people that we support. Because bearing in mind, as a technology team, or as a team who's actually versed in intelligence, if you think about it, you need data for everything. So you have lots of people coming to you on a regular basis, and these are your stakeholders to say, I need data for this, I need to understand data for that. So we liaise very closely with the performance leads, because we do a lot of data and performance. Liaise very closely with people around contracts, because all the contracts, you know, have to be measured. You know, they have to have data to say, okay, for instance, you know, last year you had this service, how much activity does this service do? Was it a viable service? Do we need to move things here or move things there? We work with pharmacists. So interestingly enough, that's the other thing to think about. There's some high risk medication that pharmacists need to have intelligence on. They want to know, okay, patients of this particular cohort, you know, this particular group of patients, should we be giving them these drugs? Where, you know, which services are actually using more high risk medications? Again, tying it back to patient care. So do a lot of that. But I don't want to leave you with an interesting thing that happened, that we had to do. I think it was about last year or the year before. So we had, this is how data just does amazing stuff. So we had, there was a team that wanted to open a service somewhere in our trust, and you know, they were sort of wanted to move, and you know, so what they said to us is, we have this group of patients in our current location, and we will give you all their postcodes. And we want to move to, I think it was the north of the borough or something along those lines. Don't quote me on that. And so we'll give you the postcodes, and if you can help us map their postcodes. So we have an intelligence tool. I don't know if any of you have heard of Tableau. So Tableau, I'm not selling anything, but there is an intelligence tool out there that really helps us manipulate and visualize data. So we took all the patients' postcodes and we put it into this tool, did all our jiggery pokery, you know, with coding. And by the time it came out on the map, patients were not living on the north of the borough. Most of the patients living on the south of the borough. So what does that mean? That means patients don't have to travel all the way to the north of the borough, because we can actually locate the service in the south of the borough. And again, I'm really passionate about ensuring that people understand that you're providing data, you're providing a service, but you need the why is really important. And I think that's what I want to leave people with. You really need to always, the why am I doing this? Because there's always something behind the data, and that's what gives you the excitement for you. That's what makes you wake up in the morning. It's the why.
Thank you so much for that. Just to double check, you're head of information where?
At Central Northwest London.
Okay, there we go.
Foundation Trust, yeah.
And last but most interesting, Shira, what's your typical week like?
Well, I'm sure I'm not the most interesting. I was so impressed and inspired by all the stories I've heard today. So I've got about 6 roles, but I'm not going to tell you all 6, but we'll keep it to about 3. So I'm a GP in Tower Hamlets, and for about 20 years, we've seen patients face to face. So somebody would book an appointment, whether it's a child or somebody who is an adult, and they would come and see you face to face. But in the last 5 months, of course, as you know, it's all completely changed and the whole world has gone upside down. You can still see your GP face to face. That's a really important message. But your first contact with your practice is probably by a telephone call or an online form, or even a video consultation or a text on your phone. So all us GPs have suddenly had to become very tech savvy within a few weeks. So it's been quite a big wake-up call for us, because the change has just been implemented so quickly, which is why digital is just at the center of patient safety and patient experience right now. And what I've learned about tech, because I was a information officer about 4 years ago, and that role is basically being the most senior clinician in a hospital trust, in charge of informatics and digital. It's not about the equipment and it's not about the technology, it's all about people. And it's all about how you engage people using the technology, whether it's an electronic record or video consultations. It's about how you listen to what patients want and what people experience as a service user, and how you design services around patients and staff, because we need to help our staff to do their jobs. So that's the GP bit. The second role I do is more strategic. So I work as a national advisor with NHS England, which is the same organization Zainab works for. And that sets a strategic direction for all NHS services in the country. And my role is to bring a clinical voice to how we deliver services at a system level, and to make sure there's a connection between frontline clinical staff and what the centre is planning to do around services like A&E or primary care or respiratory services. Then my third role, which is probably the most fun, is setting up the Shuri Network. And if you don't know who Shuri is, if you haven't seen the film Black Panther, please go and watch it on Netflix today. Shuri is the princess of Wakanda. She is a technological genius. She's responsible for the survival of her country. And we thought she'd be a great role model for women of color in the NHS and social care interested in technology. So the network was born last year. I think all our women today are members of the network. And it's been wonderful connecting with other women, hearing their stories, giving them a chance to share their stories and their advice to inspire the next generation of digital leaders. Thanks.
Thanks so much for that. Yeah, the Shuri Network is doing amazing things, one of which is working with us, I'm joking. And I've really got one last quick fire question. We have a few questions that have come in already, which is great. And I've just sent the link again if anyone wants to ask any questions. But again, this is quick fire, like maybe 30 seconds. Are there any prerequisites for your role? And if the answer is yes, state what they are. If the answer is no, maybe you can state kind of ways of working or kind of attitudes people should have towards the role that you currently do right now. So I'm going to go backwards again, and I think we start with Ruth.
Perfect. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh, wonderful. So there were not necessarily any prerequisites for my role in particular. So I will talk a little bit about the values that I use in my everyday life, and that's part of the work that I do. And so a part of the work that I do as a consultant is to be a leader. And I think it's important for young people to recognize and realize that the values that are required of a leader is basically to just have a good moral compass and try to always think about doing good in all that you do. So having integrity as well in the work that you do. And it's important to know as a leader that it's not the fact that you're a figurehead, but you work as part of a team. And so what does that mean? It means being able to bring the best out of people, and having respect and compassion for others as well. And that's where you can bring about meaningful change and lead positive change effectively. And you can do that in any capacity. At the moment now, it's important for young people to realize that you have the ability to enact meaningful change, and you don't have to have the word title or lead in what you do. Just to go back to some of the things I do as a consultant as well. I want to elaborate just a little bit that I also work with small medium-sized companies, which are called SMEs. And basically I give them advice and support on any kind of local and national and international endeavors that they are going to be undertaking, and that includes helping them with planning, new innovations, and helping in terms of commissioning new digital health innovations as well. So yeah, that was me trying to keep to the 30-second limit.
It's okay, no worries. Just want to get to the questions people have sent in. Zainab?
I think I'd echo what Ruth said about it's the transferable skills, I think. So obviously there's prerequisites on the grad scheme. So I think it's at least a 2-1 in a degree, but it's mainly when you get to interview and when you get to assessment centre and even further on in your career. So before I interviewed for the job I am in now, it's about those transferable skills. So what are you going to bring in those roles? So it's leadership skills, it's your communication skills, like Shira spoke to us about. It's your how you bring things together, your strategic thinking, those kind of stuff.
Thanks. Grace?
Yes, sure. So I don't know, maybe mine is slightly different to some of the other members of the panel, because my focus being like mostly on communication. So I'd say that one of the key ones is like being able to write and enjoying it actually as well. And linked to that, within this sort of this kind of technology, I think as well, like being able to find simple ways to communicate quite complicated things, and enjoying that process. And as part of that as well, I think I do it a bit in this role, but particularly in my last role when I was working at the design agency, like is like if there's like people that are like real experts in their area and you're working with them, it's like how can you get what's in their head out and onto a blog post or a piece of paper, or however you want to call it, in a way that other people, that like the rest of us can understand, like, including myself and the rest of us. So I think that's like that's definitely part of the role. And then alongside that, there's some basic stuff about like the tools that you use or the channels that you use. So knowing about like writing for the web, and a bit of stuff about how you manage a website, a CMS, they're called, bit of how you do social media, how you track analytics across both of those things, so you can see how you're doing and know how you want to improve it. So yeah, I'd say it's those are the two critical things.
Thank you so much for that. That's really interesting. So if you like writing, tech is still for you. That's what I got from that. It's good. Next up is Jasmine.
Yeah, I really do agree with the rest of the panel there. I think I would add one thing is with tech, you do have to continuously learning passionate almost, I would say. Most of my teams, including myself, we are very sad. We go coding Saturday, Sunday. And that is how sad we are. But, you know, in a way is that you do have to love, you know, your passion. And it's not a chore, you know, to you. It's something that, wow, I really need to learn more. I can't wait. That's I see that time and time again. So and also remember that the tech goes very quickly, the cycle, as we move on. The cycle is a lot shorter. I think I would be fair to say, you know, what we hear today, in about 12 months time, you will find that something completely different. So always be on the game in learning. That will be you'll be best equipped for anything comes along tech.
Wonderful. But do you think, because you're a lead data scientist, and you know, data scientist, then data analyst, business intelligence, or all these different roles, are there any specific degrees or anything that you think you and your colleagues have that's required for your role?
Right. Funny enough, actually, data scientists, because data touch across many. A lot of people initially, they thought that, oh, you got to be a statisticians. Not really, actually. In fact, the entry level for data science is, I mean, long ago, it was kind of requested or believed or perceived you have to have a PhD or something like that, because that were more algorithmic level. Now, there are all the open source out there for libraries, and you can really just call those libraries, and they're very well explained, and you can also run it on your laptop. And there are things that something called a Google Colab or something like that too, because some of these programs really require intense GPU, graphic processing unit. And so, and these days, actually, those are, you can get that for free, you know, in a way to try it. It may not be stable all the time, but there's so many ways you can do. So the background in the team, they come from medical background, actually, some of them from a economics background, some of them come from a social background. So it's all sorts. I think really the difference really is that the individual drive and passion about data and learning.
Wonderful, thanks for that. That was really helpful. One thing I'm going to mention is there were a few things like Agile and Google Colab and open source, which we may not get to hear about in detail today, but I think I'll ask the panelists about any, not necessarily jargon, but domain specific words that they've used, and we'll have a write up and we'll make sure that everything's demystified. But if you have any questions immediately, like what's a Google Colab, ask them in our Slido. There's also a poll in our Slido, the first question, and then we'll release the second question in a bit. So please answer that. Next person is Ayo.
Hello. Okay, so what do you need in my role?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll sort of talk about the obvious.
A
Which
bit
is
faint, though.
Sorry, can you hear
The
me?
sound is a bit.
Hello?
There we go.
Okay. So I'll talk about the obvious. The obvious is obviously a background in data. You need to love data. You need to be analytical and thinking. You need to really love numbers. Otherwise, you just go crazy. You'll be bored. I found analysts who've not lasted very long because they don't really love numbers. They think it's a job. It's not a job. Like just like Jasmine said, you know, if you love numbers, it becomes just your thing. I think the other thing is for me, understanding of the NHS, good communication skills, really good communication skills. I do lots of, in fact, I did my diary in July for some reason. I just went through my diary and decided to chart how much time I spent in meetings. And I think I spent about 40-50% of my time in meetings. It's quite frustrating. So lots and lots of talking, but talking strategically. I have mentioned project management, which is very important because there needs to be a structure, because I find I'm managing multiple projects, and you know, and I have staff who work with me, colleagues, so I just definitely need to be on track, and that's really one key skill. Um, and I did mention understanding of NHS management experience as well, you know, being strategic. And I'll sort of come away from the obvious, and I'll sort of come into the, well, it is the obvious, but it's not necessarily what you put on paper. You need some absolutely amazing confidence, to be honest. Let's just put it out there. As a BAME person, as a Black woman, I have to just, you know, I bring my confidence hat on and I just walk into the room and I just do what I need to do. And I think sometimes you just have to drive, you have to pick yourself up. And I think one thing I do want to leave is, and I do want to absolutely say, is that sometimes people get really scared because they know 50 or 60% of what they're talking about, and so they don't want to say anything. But that's absolutely wrong. As long as you know something about what you were talking about. My thinking and what I always tell people to do is to go in there, and because you can only learn from getting involved and you contributing, but don't shy away from putting some confidence in there, putting yourself out there, trying to get your voice heard, because it's very important to get your voice heard, because that's one way of sort of moving into. So I think keep the, take the fear, throw it into, the Thames, and square your shoulders and get some confidence. And I think that's one key thing that I definitely take into my role.
Great, thanks. And Shira, whichever one of your three or all of your three, I know one is quite obvious. So
Yes.
have fun
The
with
obvious one is a medical degree. The MBA is optional, but probably like the others who've done an MBA, I found it really helpful to get an insight into other industries, to meet people from a finance or a private sector background. And actually that gave me the confidence to cut through some of the rubbish that people sometimes speak in meetings, like managers try and bamboozle you with all sorts of management speak. And when you've done an MBA and spent, 3 years with very senior managers on the MBA in your group, you realize that a lot of it is just smokescreen. And I did another master's actually in education. But I think more important than the qualifications, you've got to build a network around you of people that you trust and people that will support you, because these are really tough times. And when you're a BME, it is 2 or 3 times or 10 times harder to not just get the job, but also to stay in the job. The knives come out. So you've got to be really tough. You've got to build your own personal board of directors, people who are your friends or your family or your colleagues that you can talk to when things don't go to plan. So the second thing I was going to say is, what does it take to be a digital leader or a leader in the NHS? And a few of the panel have touched on this. It's the ability to communicate and to build trust. The second thing is, in digital, you've got to spot the gaps. So you've got to spot the things that you think are missing. Like, why is it so hard to access this bit of data? Or why is it so hard for me to turn my computer on in the mornings? Why is it as a GP, I can't see what the consultants down the road are writing in their notes about the same patient? And so you've got to try and be a solution-focused person and try and push those boundaries and identify solutions, not just the problems. And the last thing about being a leader in whatever field you are in, it's about, as somebody said, it's about understanding why you're doing it. And it's about reducing inequalities. It's about tackling discrimination, whether that's racial or gender. And actually, as a leader, demonstrating that you're willing to stick your neck out to do some of those things for our colleagues and our patients.
Thanks so much for that. Definitely, you covered so many things there. So not long left, loads of questions. One that I saw that wasn't the most serious. So I think what I'll do is I may direct some to people, and the ones that are for everyone, it's like very much 20 seconds to answer the question. So the first one, which is not that serious, is at Jasmine, what haven't you done? And I'm not sure if she's going to answer that one.
That is very funny. Whoever said that is very smart. There are lots of things I haven't done.
And then we have, so some people are upvoting questions as well. So even if you don't have questions, you can upvote some. There's one that's, and I think this is for everyone, as women, what challenges and problems have you faced in your careers due to your gender, and how have you overcome them? So again, like 20 seconds each. Grace.
Yeah, I think I've been fairly lucky in the types of organizations I've worked in where like actually they've tended to be. So the design agency I worked for before was set up by a woman. She was the CEO and the founder. And so like, she was there as like a role model, and it wasn't, that was a kind of strong part of the identity of the organization. Similarly, the program I work on now is led by a woman. Maybe there's a theme here that I'm picking these, I don't know, picking these like inspirational women to work with. But I have also had, of course, the kind of bit of mansplaining, shall we say, or like a bit of like being talked down at, or occasionally a bit of surprise at maybe my age and what I've done, or like sort of what you've achieved, etc. So yeah, I think you do get a bit of that. I think for me, the thing that I think probably where it's been harder for me is probably like older legacies from school, and like and feeling like yeah, being constantly challenged at school for being or kind of pulled down by. So I think some of it is like working through like older things that have knocked your confidence, and then trying to like build that up through your career by working with people that I guess inspire you and that like support you on building that.
It's good to hear. Didn't expect you to say you worked for some great women, so that's also good to hear as well. Zainab?
I would echo exactly what Grace said about working with amazing women. It's so uplifting. I guess, again, I probably less so about challenges I face as a woman. I think it's as a young woman. So people often look at me and underestimate me because of my age, and I specifically have this mainly in some of the more leadership roles I do. So I'm also the co-chair of the Muslim Network for the NHS Muslim Network, and also partnerships lead for TEDx NHS. And there's certain meetings sometimes with partners that we go into that they might be surprised to see someone like me if they might have spoken to me on emails or over the phone, but then yeah, in person. And it's those microaggressions sometimes you get.
Definitely. Jasmine?
Yeah, so I think in terms of challenges, my way in dealing with challenges or negativity, I think number one, I kind of have forgiveness in my head. And maybe it's a bit strange, but I don't know why. Ever since when I was young, and if somebody disagree with me because of me as a gender, or I was the only kind of female in the class, which was quite typical when I was doing my engineering course, I didn't actually take that so negatively. I think that's important. Sometimes maybe, I guess my way in dealing with this is that I kind of think I wouldn't like to let people negativity to sort of affect me. And also the forgiveness comes in is that people perhaps coming from a different space, they maybe have a difficult background themselves. So, and as I get older, I've seen more and more of that. So my immediate response is more on the forgiveness and then concentrate on what I'm interested, which is data. So maybe I get distracted that way very easily.
I really like that, and I really like that no one's really been like, oh, there's this one experience and it made me feel, negative. I don't know what the others are going to say in a second, but I really like that everyone has that resilience already, which there was a question about building resilience, and is kind of over that and like doesn't allow that to affect what they do. So Ruth?
Hiya, can you hear me okay? Perfect. So yeah, I've been fortunate to have quite a colourful career so far. And there have been some challenges that I have faced being an academic as well, and being a consultant, especially in academia, I would say, at some times in my field in informatics, when I would walk into a room, I would usually be the only person of colour, or I'll be the only woman. And that would be in many professional settings. I came to realize very quickly that I had to remain focused on all my goals, work diligently with integrity, and let my work speak for itself. That is one of the key aspects that I truly believe in. And I think it has clearly worked given my previous career highlights. Also, I learned for young people out there who are watching that you can flip the narrative. Yes, you may be a minority in certain situations, but you can make yourself to be hyper visible and ensure that your work speaks louder than any expectations that anyone has of you, regardless of your race or your gender. I also just like to quickly make a quick note of mentorship as well, and guidance. I didn't have any particular guidance or mentorship in mainstream education, but during primary and secondary school, I also attended supplementary school on the weekends. And in that capacity, I was exposed to mentors. My mum's an educator, so she ran the school. So there I learnt about the importance of my culture and having the confidence in who you are as a person, be involved in extracurricular activities, so to become well-rounded. And I think that's also important. So in my capacity as well, as an academic, I'm also a postgraduate advisor for master's students who are undertaking master's courses at University College London in health data analytics and health informatics. And so I'm available to young people as well who would like any type of mentorship opportunity. I can work voluntarily with you. I think it's so important to have people out there so you can see and identify with people who are in leadership positions. So yeah.
Thank you so much. If anyone else on the panel is interested in that, I think just contact me, and then I can always do share the message with everyone that's been here today. And there are some other questions as well that I may just ask you guys to give me your answers to, and then I will share them with everyone as well, just because of time. So Shira.
A lot of what I was going to say has been covered, but I guess the thing I would add is I really quite enjoy job interviews. And that might sound really, really odd and really geeky, but I suppose the reason is I've kind of worked out what my values are and what I stand for. And I know that I've built up over the years, because I think, by far the oldest person in this panel, the experience that I've gained in different roles in health and in technology, that I can actually tell a good narrative when I go for an interview about what I've done and why I've done it. And I think it's really important to have examples of how you've influenced change, how you've supported colleagues, how you've improved things for your team and for patients in the NHS. So I guess my advice to the audience is, work out what you stand for and what you believe in, and then start building that experience block by block. And it takes a long time to build that little wall of experience. But once you've got that, you can go into an interview and know that nobody can throw you off because you're telling them about yourself. And if you have built that foundation, then they can't question you because it is you that you're sharing with them.
Thank you so much. Job interview. I don't think we'd end up here. Ayo, again, just really, really quickly.
Okay. Can I recap that the question is really around challenge as a woman, right?
Yeah, challenges faced as a woman because of your gender and how you overcame it.
Okay. First of all, I sort of echo Jasmine on the having to. I have a background, so my secondary school we're about 10% female. So it's not too many, not too many females in the school. So I grew up with lots of males, and I think the industry I'm in, it's a very male-dominated, area as well. So I tend not to really see myself in that from that perspective. However, I also do want to sort of echo again what a few people have said about mentors. So I got myself a mentor, and I've been privileged to also work with. I have a female boss who is absolutely really amazing and really encouraging. And I think it's really important that we sort of get people we can soundboard off. Very important. So because as not just as women, as people, so this is not just for women. You really need someone to talk to sometimes, and sort of get a sounding board, really. And I think that's really helped me personally. Because as a woman, obviously, at different points in my career, I've had kids, and I've had to take time off and do all that, and you have childcare, and all those things potentially could impact you, where people are looking at you to say, okay, now she has to take time off to go, how come I don't have to, I'm not, I don't have kids, so why do I have to, you do hear those things. But it's really around, hopefully you're getting that support system as well. And you're supporting other women as well. So there's always it's always good to give back, because giving back is absolutely important. So I think what I'll leave people with is really what's been said before, but just to echo, get that support system. Try not to be the victim. The victim mentality, sort of try and you move away from that thinking, and just forge ahead. Somebody said something I found quite interesting. at something I was at not long ago, how a man will potentially look at an opportunity, and he only has 50% of the qualities, and he will go for it, and a woman would think, oh, even if she has 70-80%, she'll think like 10 times, and she'll be like, I'm not sure. So so I think we do have to sort of sometimes speak to ourselves as women as well. So it's really important.
Thanks. So the next question is going to be thumbs up, thumbs down, which is, have any of you experienced burnout? Okay, we have. Is that everyone thumbs up? Kind of. Okay. If you know how you overcame that, do you mind typing that into the chat so that I can ask just one last question? Which is, since we've already spoken about things like that, I would say, what advice do you have for recent graduates wanting to work in tech? I'll ask Zainab. Ooh, Zainab looks like she's typing.
Sorry, I was trying to type your other one about burnout, but what advice do I have? I guess it's what people have already said around first making sure that you're passionate about it. So if you're interested in tech at the moment, there's loads to do, loads of things that you could do just to find out more about it. So such as events like this and with the Shuri Network, speak to people who are already within tech like you're doing, just to kind of hear how they've experienced it. And yeah, just get as much experience as possible just to make sure that you really enjoy it, because there's nothing worse than doing a career that you really just don't enjoy.
Exactly, thanks. Jasmine?
Yeah, I mean that's really go the same way. You passion is the way to do it. Otherwise, you can't really get through the difficult time. Because then you enjoy the difficult time, dare I say, when it comes to it.
Thanks so much for that. It looks like we've got some things in the chat. So Grace said yes to burnout, but during studying, not work. Advice equals it's okay to take time out. I think that's good. Ion says burnout, take a step back, identify the issues, look for bite-sized ways to address the issues. And maybe Zainab will give us something. But with that, it's 2:28, so I will conclude it and say thank you so much for everyone that's coming. I released a poll on the Slido about whether you will consider a job in the public sector from today. The Slido is also open. If you have any questions for anyone in particular, or you'd like to get in touch with anyone, let us know. Like I said, there were some really thought-provoking questions that some of you asked about, being BAME in tech and things like that, which we didn't quite get around to. So I will send them out to the panelists and collate the answers and share them all with you. So if you're especially interested in that, or if there's anything else, just let us know. And again, please feel free to type in the chat how you think today went, and what you thought about it. We're all on social media at Network Shuri for the Shuri Network, at Codes of Colour for Codes of Colour. Shuri Network's on Twitter, Codes of Colour on Twitter and Instagram. So feel free to share your thoughts about the event and how you thought it went. We have a reply from Zainab about burnout that says, prioritize your self-care, lean on your colleagues, friends or family, know when to say no. I think it's really good. Wow, that's really good. And I will leave it to Shira for the concluding thoughts on behalf of the Shuri Network.
Oh, thank you. Well, I don't know about you, but I've just been so uplifted by sharing this time with our panel members. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been part of this discussion.
Oh, that's good. Same. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the Shuri Network. And if anyone else has any thoughts, now's the time to share.
Oh, yes, I just have a quick thought to share with everyone. So for young people out there who might be studying their A-levels who are in university, I would also encourage you to join a support network. I'm the founder of the PhD podcast, which is a support network for PhD students, early career researchers and academics. Because when I entered academic life, there wasn't really people that looked like me. And especially at the highest level, when there's only less than 1% of professors that are Black in academia, in UK academia. So I always wondered about what can we do to bridge these gaps? Why is there this lack of representation? And lack of equal and inclusive initiatives in higher education. So I developed the network, and if you'd like to follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, and YouTube, we have a sizable following at the moment, and we release content promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Thanks so much. Does anyone else have anything they want to plug or anything else that they want to share?
Yeah. I think it was just answer the last question about well, just basically looking at opportunities out there. I think one thing I'd like to say is that there's so many things you can do with tech, so many things. I don't think we've covered anything in terms of the opportunities in tech. So what might be helpful is for you to sort of look out to see the type of jobs that are out there. There's product manager jobs, there's secure information security, there's digital security, there's all sorts of things. Because I find that people I went to school with were doing so many different things. I think in my university, I'm not sure if anyone is doing the same thing. Everyone's sort of doing different things, and I think there's a length. It's the depth and the robustness of tech is massive. So don't limit yourself. And we've talked about broadening your knowledge and getting learning. I think that's something we've covered here as well. So I just want to encourage you: don't limit yourself. Just broaden, sponge up as much as you can.
Thanks. Does anyone else have anything else they want to share? No. Oh, Zainab.
No, just to say that I'm happy to share my email if anyone wants to get in touch or needs anything.
Thank you so much for that, Zainab. So for the panelists that want to share their information or help you out, I will pass on that information to you guys. Thanks again to the panelists. Thanks for taking your lunchtime to speak to these young people. It seems as though they've enjoyed it. Let us know, everyone that's still here, let us know how you thought it went and if you're considering working for the public sector for now. But with that, I'm going to end the stream.